So the balance patch for the 1st of July has come, and with it came a lot of things that were not specified. A lot of things that came early, all the way leading up to the 2nd anniversary changes. TLDR though is that Trackblazer is now dead, URA and Unity is back, and there have been plenty of skill changes and also some quality of life stuff. So today, let's go over quickly as many of the stuff as possible in a nice short and sweet method, starting with the quality of life stuff. We'll go over these really quickly because I know these are kind of neat, but just nice to have. Firstly, there is the new photo booth mode to take screenshots of any facility trainings or events, which means yes, you can get those sneaky little photos of the hot spring even without getting the ticket yourself now. Then spark rerolls have been implemented now, so at the end of a run, you can spend 30 TP in order to reroll your spark list. You will then be able to choose between the original and the new set of sparks. So have fun choosing between 1-star guts and 1-star guts. Then for the people of you out there that are hoarding your tickets, you will now be able to use 10 tickets at a time now. So you won't have to sit using 100 tickets individually one after each other. Then over in the club, you can now request sashes instead of shoes as well. And the club leader can also set a special club card for the club. Some other quality of life stuff include an increase in the veteran list from 240 to a new cap of 260, as well as increasing the number of follows that you can have from 60 to 70. Then when it comes to filtering out your veterans, there are some new filter options where you can specifically select what sparks you want to search for. That way it makes it easier to find those groundwork or the UMA stand or other sparks that you are specifically looking for skills. There's also an easier way now to flip through your veterans by letting you scroll left and right instead of having to go back out and click on each and every one. Also, your runs will be much faster now, as you will notice that when skip is enabled, the text will scroll through much faster. And then for the new scenarios, for both URA and Unity Cup, the stat caps have been raised for both of these scenarios. Now, as a reminder, when you train over 1200 stats, the amount of stats that you gain will actually be halved. And on top of that, the effective stats that these actually provide beyond 1200 are also going to be reduced in terms of their effectiveness. So think of it like whenever you see a speed training, you're actually getting a quarter of the effective stats if you are going over 1200. Both URA and Unity Cup though have been revamped, which means that Make Any Track or Trackblazer is pretty much officially dead now. It's the old busted scenario. And now you will probably be wanting to run both URA and Unity Cup scenarios for multiple reasons. Let's start off with the URA changes though. Firstly, the facilities have been updated to increase their stat gains to help you reach those higher stat caps, but the new mechanic in URA is the Happy Meek duels. You'll now be able to train with Happy Meek when she appears on certain facilities, and if there is a chance that you can duel her, then succeeding in the training with Happy Meek will trigger that duel, and you will have 3 choices to choose from where you select one of 3 options, each with a different chance of succeeding. Winning this duel will give you stats, some skill points, and also a hint for a Racing Spirit skill that is related to the option that you choose. These Racing Spirit skills are very good, especially the stamina and the power skills. The stamina skill gives you a whopping 0.25 speed boost in the last spurt for the low cost of just 2% stamina drain, and the skill itself only costs 150 skill points at base level. This is basically another gold skill in terms of velocity. Meanwhile, power also gives you a velocity in the last spurt with a smaller effect but a longer duration, both of which very highly sought after skills. Every time you win a duel against Happy Meek, it will also increase her level up to a level 5. If you get her to level 5 by the time you finish the URA run, then in the finals of the URA, you will go up against a buffed version of Happy Meek with bigger stats and more skills. If you are then able to beat the Super Meek, you will get another special event at the end of the scenario where you get plus 20 to all stats as well as a whopping 150 skill points. These are affected by your stat bonuses, by the way. Beating the Super Meek will also get you a hint for the new gold skill, Past My Limits, which will provide a speed boost in the final spurt, scaling with the user's highest stats. All of these new skills introduced in URA are very good and highly sought after. So many people will look to try and make some parents or even grandparents in URA aiming to get these skills and sparks for them to loop onto future parent runs in other scenarios. Speaking of other scenarios though, Unity Cup has also been updated. Firstly, you'll notice a bunch of new teams to take on during Unity Cup, as well as some new UMAs in there as well. Just like URA though, the stat caps have also been increased in Unity Cup alongside the facility stat gains. Now, the big change to Unity Cup though is the introduction of purple bursts. After you have triggered a regular spirit burst once with a support, they will have a chance to randomly have a purple burst. Now, these purple bursts give a lot. Firstly, it will guarantee the training succeeds no matter what, even if you are at 0 energy. Like a regular burst, it will also boost the stats of the support of your teammate and your UMA as well. And also, the most important thing is that you will get a skill hint for the corresponding Ignited Spirit skill based on the facility that you triggered the purple burst on. This means that you will be able to get all of the skill hints for all of the ignited skills that you want. Great to target those Ignited Spirit power as well as the Ignited Spirit wit hints. And you can get all of these in one singular run. Speaking of skill hints though, one big change is that now the random skill hints that you get from Spirit Bursts are now dependent on the skills from the support card's hint pool that is bursting, not your aptitudes. This could be considered a bad thing potentially. You know, you can't really get your pace chaser skills anymore just for having a aptitude and pace. But at the same time though, odds are you are gonna get random nonsense skills anyway, so maybe it was for the best. So when choosing support cards for Unity Cup runs, you'll need to think a bit more about what skills that you're gonna be aiming for. Also, when you take on the Unity team races, if you lose, you will be able to use clocks on these races now. And also, if you make it to the Senior Year Summer Unity race, while being a team rank of A and being ranked 10 or better, as well as having triggered at least one purple burst, you will have a special enemy team to challenge, denoted by them having a pink background, and they will overtake whatever was in the top slot. If you then beat this team, you will face a stronger version of Team Zenith at the end of the run. If you then beat the stronger Team Zenith, it'll make it easier to get the Unity Cup Scenario Spark at the end of the run, and it will also allow you to get the plus version of the Ignited Spirit skills. Speaking of pluses though, Ignited Spirit skills from Unity Cup and the Racing Spirit skills from URA will be able to get plus versions of the sparks randomly at the end of a run. These plus versions will now give stats alongside the skill hints as well, so just a nice bonus on top. Specifically though, Racing Spirit move will also give bonus SP since that isn't really tied to a stat. You will now also be able to achieve a new team rank of S+, up from just S, in Unity Cup, and doing so will give you another extra hint for the gold It's On skill. Now, what does this all mean? Basically, you should try a run now in URA and Unity Cup yourself and see just how high your stats can go. It's going to be pretty easy to hit very high caps. In fact, it'll be easy to overcap stuff as well. The downside will be that yes, you probably will get a little bit less SP compared to Trackblazer. However, with the new changes, this can be counteracted by getting better skill hints as well from stuff like Unity Cup, as well as getting the highly coveted Ignited Spirit skills. Now, in terms of parenting and when it comes to skill sparks and looping things around, because URA is still technically speaking a weaker scenario in terms of getting high stats because it doesn't really have the fancy big little bubbles that you have in Unity Cup, it makes it a bit harder to consistently hit SS rank UMAs, which is what you want when you make parents to have higher quality sparks. So in theory, you could still run URA as a grandparent run to try and get the Racing Spirit skills, specifically again the stamina and power skills, and then use these grandparents to loop onto a Unity Cup ace, or parent even, aiming to re-inherit the URA skills on a Unity Cup UMA, while also trying to get the Ignited Spirit skills as well. Again, you don't have to do this, it's just that is going to be the new gold standard of parents that people will be expecting to find. But in terms of aces now, one could argue that running aces in Unity Cup is going to be a lot more viable, especially if your UMA doesn't have to have a mandatory Tenno spring run, so you can get away with not having any stamina for the upcoming sprint CM. Don't forget though that if you are going to do parents in URA and then Unity Cup, you still want to try and do as many G1 races as possible. And then some other big changes are all of these second anniversary skill changes that were brought forward early. Now, you can look up a full list as there are a lot of changes, but here are some of the most important ones. Firstly, several recoveries now activate mid-race instead of late race, making them much better, such as Breath of Fresh Air, which is a huge change, making it an actually reliable skill now, as well as Relax, Cooldown, and their associated white skills. Instead of activating late race where it's a bit too late, they can now activate mid-race where you know they will be effective. Then a lot of the quote-unquote gamble skills that activate late race are now set to trigger specifically in the first half of the late race, so they're more consistent. For example, accelerations like On Your Left, Slick Surge, or velocities such as In Body and Mind, the gold homestretch haste. Now, instead of activating right as you cross the finish line, they are guaranteed to activate in the first half of the late race, making them a bit more effective. Speaking of velocity skills though, some other notable ones that have been changed are Beeline Burst getting a longer duration, so it is now on par with something like Professor of Curvature, as well as Mile Maven activating in the latter part of the early race, so it's less likely to trigger early while you're still accelerating where you don't get that speed boost effectiveness. Then a lot of the UMA uniques have also been adjusted. For the most part, a lot of the changes simply boil down to it makes it easier to activate the unique now. However, there are a handful of notable winners when it comes to these changes. Firstly is Tokai Teo. Her unique now triggers at any point in the late race, not just a final straight. And one of her navigation skills, Thunderbolt Step, has been adjusted to no longer require a position requirement, meaning that she has just a mid-race acceleration and movement buff now, as well as being able to trigger her unique earlier in the race. Specifically on races where the late race starts on a corner, this is great for her. Then there is the OG Special Week, who gets a huge change with Shooting Star. The requirements to activate it are still the same, needing to be able to pass somebody late race, but instead of providing a target speed buff, it will now instead provide a current speed buff, which is a big difference, since instead of waiting for her to accelerate now to the highest speed, she will just instantly get that burst of speed now. Then for those of you that want to use the original Mihono Bourbon, her unique no longer requires you to not be rushed in the race, although you will still need to make sure that you don't late start though. And then New Year Team Opera O's Bark Roller Blessing has had its duration increased from 4 seconds to 5 seconds, which may not seem like much, but it is now actually a big buff because it is truly on par with other uniques such as Triumphant Pulse now instead, whereas before it was just shorter with really no other benefit. Another good late race velocity unique that has received a buff is Fujikisuki's Lights of Vaudeville, where it will now trigger when there is 300 meters or less left in the race instead of randomly on the final straight. She can also trigger it between the 1st and the 4th place now instead of only up to 3rd place, making this much more consistent in being a pulse-like unique skill. For OG McQueen as well, the Duty of Dignity calls has received a special buff specifically for when it is triggered on a long track, where it will provide an even bigger speed boost than before at 0.45 instead of just 0.35. And then for the Meisho Doto fans out there, her positional requirement has been completely removed on her unique skill, which is great because beforehand it was kind of awkward in that you don't know whether you could run her as a pace chaser or a late surger because of that very specific 4th and 5th place requirement for Never Goof Up. Now, it doesn't matter. As long as she's passing somebody on the corner, she will get Never Goof Up for that acceleration and speed boost. And it also no longer requires her to overtake on a corner specifically. Again, just making it way easier to activate. For a full list of the changes though, I'll have a link in the description below of the other 2nd anniversary skill changes. But for now though, those are probably the most important ones to keep note of. Like I said, a lot of the other unique skill changes are simply just for making it easier to activate them and making them more consistent. Otherwise though, those are pretty much the most important changes that you need to know in this patch now. Again, TLDR, URA and Unity is so back, baby. Bye bye Trackblazer. Have some fun in the new URA, look at the big numbers, look at the UG stats, try and farm some of the new skill sparks, revisit Unity Cup and actually be able to take on Team Zenith consistently thanks to the extra stats you get from Purple Sparks, and have fun in the game. Otherwise though, until next time, enjoy the update. Bye bye.